Good evening, guys. Welcome to the winter. Almost. Let's see. Clayton. Pablo here. Val's here. Michaela. Tom here. David. Piper's excused. Maynard. I've seen him. Trayson. Not treason, Trayson. Peaks here and Rosie here. How's registration going for you guys? Any issues? I can only help with the finance majors, but at least we don't have issues with Finance 301 anymore. For years, we kind of put a restriction on Finance 301, restricting it to finance and accounting majors and instructor approval, because a lot of general business majors picked that as a finance elective, and trust me, they can't cut it. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, they chose to be general business majors for a reason. They don't want to deal with finance. For some reason, it all kept giving even just finance students prerequisite errors, even though they satisfy all the prerequisites. For 5 years, we had issues. This year, I haven't seen it yet. We'll see. All right. Today I'm going to talk about, in general, how to forecast financial statements, especially income statements, using projections of sales and costs. We're going to kind of, and this is something you're going to need for two purposes. A, how's the, by the way, surveys going on? Are you guys getting responses yet? Have you deployed them yet? It's okay, you still have time, but, you know, at least for the purpose of going through the motion, all three groups propose some sort of new product or business. So you need to have some idea about what sort of demand is there out there. Based on that, you can make projections of sales to figure out whether it's something worthy to go, and worry about how to finance it. You know, one of the things that you're going to need to finance it, to come up with valuations, because especially early on, it's going to be almost impossible for you to get debt financing. You know, it's a new business. Other than friends and family, nobody's going to be willing to lend you money. It doesn't matter how good it is. Think about, I mean, you have a new idea. You may think it's very good, it may even be very good, but a lot of these things sometimes are based on just pure luck. You start a new business, that year ends up being a recession year, right? Now, if you go down, you know, you won't be able to pay me back, but if you're successful, I don't get anything from the upside. So why would I lend you money for it? Yeah, if you're a company like Apple, chances of you going down is almost nothing, so I have no problem lending you money. You know, if you go down, I don't participate. When your stock price goes down, it doesn't affect me. When your stock price goes up, it doesn't affect me. But when you're lending into a relatively new startup, that's a problem. Well, how do you get equity financing? Well, you do it based on some valuation. If you say, okay, you give me $1 million, I'll give you this much percent of the company. Well, that statement depends precisely on what's the value attached to the company. If you attach a $10 million valuation, $1 million would be 10%. If you attach a $5 million valuation, that percentage would be 20%. You do your deals based on those. Any of you guys ever watched, what's that thing? Shark Tank, something like that? The idea is similar. And these businessmen make offers to people. Have you ever seen them offering just to lend money? No. But they do?
What the bank does?
Yeah, but that's for show purposes. Trust me. Unless there are collateralized assets, banks are not going to lend money to startups. Why would they? What's in it for the bank? They take a lot of risk for what? But, if they're financing purchase of a real estate, sure, that's collateralized. Because over there, a specific asset is pledged for that debt. Normally, when a firm declares bankruptcy, there is an order in which stakeholders are paid when the assets are liquidated. But when there is something like a mortgage, there's a specific collateral. That building is sold. From the proceeds, the bank that originated the mortgage gets paid. If there is anything left, that goes to the pool for the other creditors. Otherwise, in general, you're not going to get a signature loan from a bank unless that signature loan is actually just for you personally. That means bank can attach to your other assets. Normally, when a corporation borrows money, it's limited by the assets of the corporation. So if there's nothing left, nothing happens to the partner's assets. But in many cases, the only way you can get the only way you can get a loan is to put your name on it. In fact, these things are called signature loans. What happens if you don't pay your credit cards? In a lot of cases, not much, because in many cases, those people who default on credit card loans typically don't have assets. So banks don't come after your assets because they assume you have no assets. And there is another reason: they kind of securitize these things. Or they sell it to debt collectors, pennies on a dollar. And debt collectors try to get some money from you. But they don't go through the motion of going through legal means to come after your assets, or if you have salary, garnish your wages and stuff. Because in most cases, somebody who makes $200,000 a year is not going to default, is unlikely to have defaulted on their credit cards. But if you borrow money from a bank for a business and you have other income, they may be willing to lend to you because they know they can come after your wages. Legally, I think they can garnish up to 25% of your wages, depending upon the amount. If you have low wages, that percentage is lower. But if you're making $200,000 a year, they can definitely get $50,000 and garnish. But other than that, getting that financing for a startup is going to be rare. So most of the time, you're going to get equity financing. Think of yourself in those situations. Even with a friend, you don't want to lend money to a startup. You can take the risk, you can think it's a good idea, but if you're going to take high risk, you should have potentially high return. And that doesn't happen without equity participation of some sorts. You may do something maybe like convertible convertible is kind of a hybrid between debt and equity. You say, okay, I'm going to lend you $1 million. How about you pay me $100,000 in interest every year? But I should also have option to convert this loan into a certain number of shares. And you determine what that is at the beginning. So if the firm is doing so-so, but they're able to do their debt service, you're happy to get your interest. But if suddenly it's very successful, you want to participate in the upside, you say, okay, forget about that loan. How about I become this much percentage owner of the firm? And that also rather common with startups. Even in bad times, you guys remember 2008 crash? Who's older than 25 here? Anyone? Okay, so you may have been 10 at the time, but it was a big recession. A lot of banks were in trouble, especially investment banks.